You're listening to The KYLO Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. And it starts right now.
Well, hello and welcome to The KYLO Show. We are a band of brothers here today.
Come on.
We have Ben Serpell. He'll be playing first, and shortstop today is Christian.
Yeah, shortstop.
Yeah,
Got you covered.
We got Christian Zamora back. He is.
I wish I understood baseball better.
That's
Sorry.
Yeah, who knows how many of our audience didn't
understand
the guy in the middle, but we today are going to continue in this series of talking about men, fatherhood, brotherhood, what makes this so unique and necessary. What does success look like? How do we build a band of brothers in a culture of selfishness and or broken covenants? Like how do we restore the momentum of a masculine energy around protection and provision and connection, keeping your love on? What do we got to do, guys? How are we going to get this back? Because it's not the norm. It's not celebrated. It's not even rewarded, really. It's almost like you have to think antisocial these days to want to be a good husband and father as a man.
Yeah, when you were saying, how do we do this? The first thing for me in this journey was realizing that we had to do it, that was the problem. Mm. Like the void was there, or the desire, let's say the desire to be a great father, a great husband. But the places where I was falling short in the things that I needed in that, when we start having these conversations and hanging around, you and Ben and other men, what you start realizing is like, oh, the problem is this. And I see that in my own life, but then as someone who wants this a more hopeful future for their kids, you're like, well, how do we solve this problem on a global thing? But my eyes had to be open to fatherlessness and brotherlessness was an epidemic, and how much of it was really a root cause. So when you made that shift of like, here's the problem, well, guys like solving problems. So you get a guy motivated, going, okay, then that question follows up with, well, what do I do? Because that was my first question to you after, okay, I drank the Kool-Aid. This is a problem. I want to do something. Put me to work. How do we do this thing?
Yeah.
I think one of the first things I think about, this conversation is happening for us more and more. Mm-hmm. Like I find myself 3 out of 4 conversations with men is something around this topic, because it's just exciting and it feels so important that we're doing this. And I think there's this current underneath the noise, and the noise is that we are trying to shut down fathers. We are trying to disassemble the family. There's just all this stuff going on that is getting the airtime. Beneath that really is a bunch of men waiting for a champion to say, go do the thing that's in your heart, and that thing you are passionate about, you just haven't had permission or even know how to do it. You just need a guide or a champion to help you. Because I've had so many conversations with men that are like, I've been waiting for someone to just remind me what's inside there, because this is who I want to be. But there's this gap between who I want to be, where I want to go, and where I currently am.
We've all read a bunch of Stephen Mansfield's books. Love that guy's input. Hope to get helpful. Him involved in what we're doing.
Yep.
He wrote a book called The Book of Manly Men.
Such a great title.
Yeah.
Mansfield's Book of Manly Men.
Yeah, it's a hilarious title, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I heard the word manly men, I'm like, this is going to be a weird book.
Yeah.
Epic, so good. Every man should read this book.
Yes.
And in one of his stories, he talks about being welcomed in. I think it was this. He was in an Arabian culture. And it was just his first experience of being identified with a group of brothers. Yeah. It had to do with he's a father. They asked if he had a son. He said yes. He said from now on, your son's name will be John's son of John. and he was like, Stephen. Yeah, it was just this crazy initiation to. He felt like, I've been with men my whole life. Never one time was I identified as a brother.
Yeah.
Within the context of a whole, celebrated, reminded, initiated. You're like, that we don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that. We don't. We have sports. We have maybe a work life. Where we go be part of a group of guys, people working towards a common goal, like a touchdown or a basket or a home run or the bottom line or whatever. We have those kinds of things, but to just be associated with other men as a brotherhood, I can't think of one thing.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me of that story, when he's around these guys and he said for the first time he'd been married for decades, had kid for decades, and it's the first time someone initiated me or welcomed me into this manhood ceremony, and it was life-altering for him. It reminded me of when I first did my premarital counseling with a man, straight-up man, Pastor Jay Donley. And this was my wife's pastor. My wife's pastor grew up in the same church, all 30 years of her life, that's where she was. But, me and Bree jumped the gun on God's plan for a family, and we were pregnant, and we were on the fast track to getting married, and so we had an expedited premarital counseling, of like, hey, you're doing sessions once a week, you're actually going to meet twice a week, and I was all in on, I'll meet with your pastor, like I've been to your church, it's great, and my first session, he's like, all right, Bree's going with Pastor Patty, his wife, and Christian, you're with me. We go into his office, and he sits me down and looks like kneecap to kneecap, looks right in my eyes, gets really close, and said, Christian, do you know what it means to be a man? And something moved, because I was like, I never asked that question in my head, but I've really been asking it my entire life.
Feels like I could have a wrong answer.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I'm stunned, and I'm speechless because I really don't know how to respond to it. Yeah. And I'll never forget, he goes, it's saying you're sorry first, even when you don't feel like it. And then he just starts going into how I'm supposed to protect and pour my life out for my wife and lay my life down for her daily and what that looks like. Because that model I had for manhood was that boyhood model that I made an agreement with myself at 12 years old, watching my parents struggle of, my dad feels a little absent. They're always fighting about money. All I ever want to be is a husband and father. Like if you ask me what I want to be when I grew up, I want to be a husband and father. Yeah. So it's like, if that's my goal and these feel like the problems, 12-year-old Christian says, I'm going to make a bunch of money, a lot of money. So we're never going to fight about money. I'm going to make all the decisions in my marriage. I don't have to worry about anything. She's probably not going to have a say, She's not going to want to say. I'm just going to make all these. This is going to, 12-year-olds like, oh, she's going to love this. She's going to love it.
We'll never fight.
Yeah, well, yeah, totally.
I won't even let her in on it.
Won't even get a chance to fight.
Yeah. Been married 10 years now, and I always say, I'll text Pastor Jay, randomly, and just say the same thing. Thanks for saving my marriage before it started, man. Yeah. You spent
That's great.
6 sessions with me, and it marked me forever. But there was that initiation of, you're a man now, you're getting married, you're having a kid, like, man up, man, and this is what it looks like. You better know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this story in this book, and I love Stephen Mansfield's work. It's been so helpful in so many ways, but this story felt like I was watching a movie, and there's this plot twist. Like I didn't expect that to happen. He's 40 years old in the story, and they spent hours till the middle of the morning, early 3 a.m. or something. He said they just bring food after food, and they have this ceremony where they're initiating this man in the middle of the desert somewhere in wherever, Damascus, I think it was. But that 40-year-old man saying, I just got initiated into manhood, did something to me. I was like, oh, wow. How many other men, and even myself, looking at myself in the mirror going, have I been initiated?
Yeah.
I'm not 40 yet. And am I there? Mm-hmm. And then you turn to your kids and having sons thinking, wow, I have the most important job in front of me right here. Mm-hmm. And then we picked up a book by John Tyson, Great title. What's the title again?
The Intentional Father.
Intentional Father, like something Father.
So good.
Really good book as well, which actually gives a blueprint of what he's describing, so we can catch this thing early. So it's just such an important piece, and it did something to me. I've told this story 20 times since that book.
Yeah, I do think that the various markers in a boy's life is when he's ready to take on more responsibility, more responsibility. Like when a young man or a boy gets a job outside the home, you're like, oh, I've now been welcomed into men who work for a pay, and then maybe graduated from high school, or hitting that mark where I achieved accomplishing something that's now behind me, like men do. I am getting married. I've now entered the role of husband. Whether I know what that is, I've entered it. Whether I do a good job with it or not, nonetheless, you're in here. You look around at other men and you go, I feel the same pain you feel, whatever, you're just like commiserating or celebrating whatever that culture is that you move into. When you become a father, when you buy a house, when you move your family from around your support system to having to build a new life and do it again. There's all these different markers in a young man's life that he further associates with other men, saying, I've done that. I've done that.
There's a directness to it, I think, that's super helpful. Like you said, there's an event, or even like in the story we've been sharing, is like the men told him, hey, you're doing this very specific thing. It's a ceremony, and this is you were being entered into manhood now. We were celebrating the fact that you're a father, and it parties till 3 a.m. Or, Pastor Jay telling me, very directly, do you know what it is to be a man? And there's this thing that's super helpful with events or really direct speech for men of like, hey, buddy, it's this thing right here. I'll keep it super simple for you. This is what's happening. That really snaps, the attention of a man to go, okay, I can focus on that right now. I get what's going on.
Yeah, so good. I remember a time where we went to Alaska together. Ben and a couple other guys. We get up there.
Every time I go to Alaska is shocking.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been to Alaska together. We've all done these adventures. I remember in our language, maybe I don't even know if it's. I'm not sure where I could derive the origins of this, but we have this phrase called "punching your man card." I'm not even sure where that comes from. It's probably some TV show or something, but it happened in Alaska. We were on Kodiak Island. It was Ben's first outing, really.
First everything.
With a gun. He's got a gun in his hand. We're out on this huge swath of land called Kodiak Island, where they literally make Kodiak bears. And
Build a bear. Yeah, I think that's what it is. That's what Build-A-Bear is. Yeah,
that's the real Build-A-Bear out there.
Build-A-Bear is happening right there in that place, and it was so epic and unexpected that I don't know if we have time to tell the whole story, but in essence, kind of lead us through it, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, we end up in Alaska and we get paired up. So essentially, the guy's not from Alaska. There's 3 of us. I paired with someone from Alaska. There's 3 of them. So I end up with Craig. Now, Craig has become one of my heroes, will be till I die. Yep. And there's lots of reasons for that. I think every time I go to Alaska, if I'm close enough to Craig, I'm close enough to death, and he saves me from it. It's how it feels.
He'll take you there and save you from it.
See the line? You're okay.
Yeah.
So, again, to make what could be a really long story, this could be a whole episode one day. Right. We'll make it short. On the second day, we end up. I've already shot my first deer. I'm now like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Card punch.
Yep.
We end up in this different spot. We're kind of watching the land. There's one bear not very far away. I've now seen a couple of bears on the shore. We didn't get off there. We end up kind of in this area, just looking at the land, glossing, as they say, in the hunting land.
Looking through binoculars.
Yeah, I'm kind of cool now. I got some terms. So we're watching this scene, and then Craig gets frustrated because he notices this bear. Now I say frustrated because this is Craig's normal life.
Yeah.
This is my first time. He's frustrated with this bear just staring at us.
Which somehow he knows is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just following your lead, sir.
Yeah.
You tell me what to do. So this bear is about 500 yards away. Through some events and through Craig trying to deter the bear, trying to get it to stop staring at us because I don't want to be your focus.
Yeah.
This large Kodiak brown bear decides, hey, I'm done watching. And it starts charging down the mountain. And again, this is my first time in Alaska. Yeah. I've just met Craig. This is this strange man that I'm falling in love with because you're going to save my life today.
Yeah.
And this thing's charging down the mountain, gets to 100 yards away. Craig has now let off 3 rounds in his gun. And the bear did not deter. Yeah. It did not change course.
Warning shots.
Nothing.
That thing is just
100 yards, stands up and looks at us.
Yeah.
And decides, I'm going to get closer. So keeps charging. Craig now lets off his last round in his gun.
Yeah.
Craig's the expert, remember? And this bear gets to 20 yards away.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know what that means, that's too close.
Yeah.
It's too close.
Too close. So I can now see the bear's eye color as it stands up again and looks at us. Yeah. And I've probably said 3 times while my legs are literally shaking.
Yeah.
My legs are shaking. I turn to Craig one more time and say, do I shoot now?
Yeah. What are we doing, man?
And he says, yes. And it charges again. Sure enough, I pull the trigger and it rears this bear up in pain. And when it turns around, Craig lets a shot out like he was ready right on time, and we drop the bear.
Yeah.
And
10 yards out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just the feelings happening inside my body.
Yeah.
What is going on right now? Where are we? Craig says, we should go check on the bear. I'm thinking, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Movie.
Yeah, I saw this movie.
I saw this movie. Wounded bear eats 2 hunters.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm thinking, I trust this man with my life after what just happened.
Sure.
I'm alive. So whatever you say, I'm going to follow, even reluctantly.
Yeah.
So go back to the boat. We kind of had this moment. I tried to film a video on the boat to kind of describe what just happened. I turned the video on and didn't know what to say. So I turned it off. So I had this 2-second video on my phone.
Yeah.
And then, a whole thing transpires. You'll hear the story if you keep following us. But my goodness.
Yeah. And within a couple hours of all that, one of the rods on the back of the boat starts bouncing, right? And Ben runs out there, grabs it, starts reeling, and pretty soon we have a 40-pound halibut on the back of the boat. So in 24 hours, Ben's first 24 hours, he kills his first buck, kills a charging grizzly, and lands a 40-pound halibut. Man card punched 3 times in 24 hours. I'm not even sure, how you top that.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's
pretty wild.
It is definitely part of Alaska lore at this point.
Yeah.
But that was a time of induction.
Yes.
Because what surrounded that moment was a bunch of men that began to feel the Lord's presence together, the bond that came in that vulnerability, the tenderness towards each other, to speak life to a man who was rocked to his core in that episode, and each man rocked with him, knowing that the Lord is talking to you, the Lord is shaping you, there is a door that is opened to you in this space, and we are here with you sharing it.
Yeah.
So there was a ignition of brotherhood in an episode like that I think, collectively makes you a part of something greater than yourself.
Reminds me of something you taught me too, with going back to creating healthy soul ties with this band of brothers. That it's a formula, which is vulnerability and time spent.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much more vulnerable of I'm about to die, 10
10
yards from death, and my life is in your hands, Craig. I trust you completely, and boom, boom, spend some time out there.
I think I peed a little.
Yeah. And you heard it in Ben's voice, just talking about Craig, the admiration, the affection, the bond. And it's been more than just that experience, but this idea of that's totally how it works. This brotherhood of vulnerability and time spent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that vulnerability, and a different word to even use is weakness.
Sure.
I think one of the ways that I've discovered the level of courage inside of me is when I get that weak in front of other men.
Yeah, it's good.
Again, every time I go to Alaska, I get that weak. But that's just different opportunities. Even talking to my wife, talking to my children when they're mad, like it requires me to go touch that weakness and then go past that and grab the courage.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of another Mansfield book. It's a table read. It's tiny, but it's so good. It's Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
And he has a formula. For building a band of brothers and going into that vulnerability piece and the weakness, it's, the 5 steps would be, one is indirect connection. Like men do things together, shoulder to shoulder.
Yep.
He talked about a little story like, they watch little girls in the room and they play together. They sit their chairs facing each other and they talk and they say, you look so pretty or you're dressed so nice. They put boys in a room together. They put their chairs side by side and they say like, let's go build something to touch the roof, or I bet you we can jump off that thing.
I'll race you.
There. So, there's hunting, right? Like, let's go hunting, this indirect connection, this thing that we'll do together. But then the next, part of that is the honor extension, where one man talks to another man and says, hey, there's something in your life that I actually really I admire and appreciate. And that the next step is really quickly, and that's the covenant transition of that in my weakness or my humility, I'm going to reach out and say, I honor that so much that will you actually help me with that?
Yeah.
And then, the person says, yeah, they jump in, they start doing life together. And it creates, that 4th step, which is that free fire zone, which is trust. I'm able to say to you, whatever I need to say to you.
Hold me accountable.
Yeah. It's that, I'm going to call you out and call you up. Like when you're being a knucklehead, like I'm going to call you out on it. I'm going to tell you the truth in love, and I'm going to call you up and remind you of the standard that we've agreed upon. And the last part, when I read that, I stopped at 4. I've been rereading it, and I forgot that 5th step is contagious culture, because we're talking about how do we start getting this to take root. And what happens is, when you do that for long enough, men are transformed and it bears fruit, and people and other men or people around them go, what are you doing over there? Because you're a different guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I got a band of brothers and they're calling me to something greater, and I'm doing the same for them.
Yeah. I think other cultures, the Arabian culture, maybe an Asian culture, the word that they get negatively stuck with is a shame-based culture. But what's missing there is the understanding of healthy shame. Like there is this thing that happens when we achieve that contagious culture. What that's saying in essence is other men begin to emulate what they see in those relationships. They're drawn into it, and as a result, I voluntarily submit myself to what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And once those relationships start to bond and adhere, the value starts going up because I don't want to lose this.
Yeah.
So how do I pick up on that I violated the culture? And it's because I'll get a look. I'll get teased. Somebody will shoot a question at me, like, how's that working out for you? Which is another way of saying, hey, knucklehead, adjust yourself. You better check yourself
before you
wreck yourself. And that all those kinds of messages to each other. You begin to realize, I'm on the wrong side of the line because my brother said something to me.
Yeah.
Because somebody who cares about my future, my family, my marriage, they care about the quality of how people experience me. They want to call me up. That is healthy shame. When in a home, when a mother kind of gives you a quick look, like, what did you say? Hail! Oh, hail! Like rain, like snow, like
frozen rain.
Yeah. Oh, what did you say? Pow! You get a look. I'm adjusting. That's healthy shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and the preservation of that, when there is an established culture, 4 people will look at you,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Whoa, okay, I won't be, adjusting. I will, and I'll protect us
Yeah.
through my adjustment."
So good.
It's good.
We're talking a lot today about Mansfield because he really has influenced us a lot. But in the Band of Brothers book, he tells a different story about this band of brothers. And one of the guys starts acting outside of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes some really poor choices in his marriage and moves to a holiday home he had or a vacation house. And so these Band of Brothers get up and they actually fly to this location.
Mm-hmm.
I think it says they knocked down his door and they came in and they essentially said, "Hey, knucklehead,
Yeah.
Yeah.
knock it off.
What
Yeah.
are you
This
doing?
is, you're acting outside of the culture. This is not okay."
Yeah.
And it's just that, I mean, I had a conversation with one of the guys in my Band of Brothers just this last week, just saying the same thing. Like, this is what we're creating.
Yeah.
This is where we're going.
Yeah.
That men are held to their best.
It's good.
So good. So good. Well, we're going to talk about this stuff for a while. You know, we're going to
Just get us excited.
We're going to find some powerful ways to keep doing this. Right now, though, it's time for us to switch over to some questions from our audience. So let's take a break.
Let's do it.
We want to tell you a truly inspirational story. In 1997, starting with nothing but their faith, Steve and Kathy Horner sold everything and moved from Weaverville, California to Tijuana, embarking on a journey to create an orphanage. Since then, over 5,000 children have been rescued, loved, and restored through the mission's radical faith-based approach. And now, over 30 years later, Jimmy and Gina Horner, their children, are continuing to fight, believing that the church can create an orphanless world.
They are transforming nations one child at a time, and you can be a part of this incredible mission by joining the mission's sponsor program. For just $30 a month donation, this directly helps the children's needs and allowing the mission to create an extended community of care around these kids. By joining the sponsorship program, you'll receive a monthly newsletter, which I love to get, and updates on the kids that you're sponsoring. And these kids that you're sponsoring come from all over the world, Mexico, Romania, and Nicaragua. I mean, they're providing services like orphan care, after-school programs. They are doing all sorts of amazing things to help better these children.
We are believing with them that within our lifetime, an orphanless world is possible. And every contribution brings us closer to that reality. Your generosity can change lives and transform nations.
It's as easy as visiting this website, www.themission.org/sponsor. This is how you become a sponsor for a child today. Just remember, we are partnering with the mission and helping create whole, healthy people that create whole, healthy families.
All right, well, welcome back. And we're going to enter to the question segment of our show. And if you have any questions, you'd like to hear the responses to questions you have about any topic, really, just DM us, Danny at Loving on Purpose, or Brittany at Brittany Serpell with 2 L's, and Brittany, like not Brittany, Brittany, so 2 T's and an N-E-Y. We're going to hit a question here. There's so much being said about toxic masculinity in society. I find it hard to know what the definition of masculinity is. How should you define healthy masculinity? What are some positive developments in men's movements, and what are some not so positive?
We said this earlier in the very beginning. I think you said it in your last episode too, but men are meant to provide, protect, and connect.
Mm-hmm.
And we have something called family coaching, Loving on Purpose. So Britt and I meet with lots of people, and a common thing I do is meet with men. And I have a couple of guys right now I'm talking to, and when we get to the root and the bottom of it, the conversation really becomes, your selfishness is on display and is ruling your house. So till that gets solved, there's just this mess being created. Your wife's in pain, your kids are disconnected, and you have to go solve that problem and become the man who is protecting, connecting, and providing. So I think just that simple test right there. We have to define those things, and I'm sure we will as we keep moving forward. But that's a huge piece.
I think a good way to check this is if you have really good friends that are idiots to their family, you're an idiot, probably. You know, if you have really good friends that are doing a great job with their families, you probably are too.
That's good.
You know, if you surround yourself with yourself, the destructive nature of masculinity has a lot to do with a man using his power to consume, to exploit. And that is damaging. That is, nobody can stop, women and children cannot stop men from doing that.
True.
You know, they will band together. But unfortunately, classically, it's as victims, which then they in turn justify being disrespectful and dishonoring, and then setting the children up to be fatherless, to have no understanding of a young boy grabbing onto his masculinity and doing a good job with it.
Yeah.
Instead, it becomes super confusing to a young man, a young boy, and he grabs onto what is really feminine energy and tries to make feminine energy masculine, which is super confusing.
Yeah.
And I was one of those guys.
Sure.
You know, I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to not be the all-consuming move from woman to woman to woman to woman, but be kind about it. You know, be thoughtful about it. Be feminine in trashing as many women's lives as I can. You know, bring flowers.
Yeah. Well, there's an art to it, you know, this balancing this, these gifts, you know, of being powerful and aggressive and it's good and it's a beautiful thing, but still being a lover and a tender of the garden and winning your wife's heart. And, you know, there's a word you say that really struck me because they feel opposite, but they're the same. And it's being a fearless lover. You know, there's this idea of like, when you hear the fearless, there's this of powerful, super, hero type of like, oh my gosh, take the mountain. I'm fearless man, all that is man. But fearless lover, that I'm tender and I'm kind and I know how to direct that strength towards protecting and providing and connecting. But it also goes back to what you're saying of like, you know, toxic masculinity is what's being reproduced because that's who's doing the training. And this really what we're doing and talking about this is a call back to fathers and brothers and just men in general to say it's okay to be masculine. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. It's necessary.
Yeah.
And the reason the question's asked, it's a reminder of, you know, this more than ever, people are asking that question because they don't know the answer. And, you know, we got this question sent in, but there's men like I shared earlier in the podcast. I had a guy ask me, do you know what it means to be a man? And as a 23-year-old guy about to get married and have a kid, I didn't have a great answer of what is that? Because no one was training me up in that. And that's why you need to find a father figure. It's why you need to get a band of brothers around you. Like you said, surround yourself with people who are doing that thing that you want to be great at and just start paying attention.
Awesome.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago, Saturday morning, I hear Sherry from the living room, Daddy! You know, I'm like, oh, that sounds like something broke. You know, that sounds like something, Daddy! So I'm getting dressed. I'm like, okay, here I come. And she's out there. And when I get out there, she said, there's a gopher in the house. And I'm thinking, a gopher ate through the bottom of our house. And it's like, what? How in the... And it's like, Lincoln. And Lincoln, who's 11, has a red Solo cup and rubber gloves, and he's standing there, rubber gloves are, right down his hands, and he's got this solo cup, and what is going on? He says, I got it. And earlier, Sherry says, I was looking around. This gopher is running on the hardwood floor, can't get any traction. We're all three girls are screaming like, "Wah!" And Sherry says, I'm thinking, where are the men folk? Where are the men folk? We need protection, And that's
No one says men folk anymore.
Lincoln, he on the scene, 11 years
buddy.
old. He comes and
Come on.
saves the day.
Yeah.
Minimizes the threat. So I go get my leather work gloves, and I said, okay, buddy, release
This is the moment.
the raptor, And he lifts it up, and there's this gopher, and I scoop him up, and that gopher is just chomping on my leather glove. I'm thinking, wow, if he gets a hold of my skin in there, it's going to hurt. Yeah. So I take it outside, save the day. But masculinity is that protection that swoops in when you call the National Guard. There's a we need strength added for there to be safety.
Peace.
That's masculine.
So good. I'm going to brag on my boy a little bit too, because it feels like what we were saying earlier, this contrast of, saving the day, but what it looks like to protect. We recently went through, I have 2 boys, or 3 boys now, but we recently went through a miscarriage before the 3rd one came, and so this last pregnancy was rough. It was pretty tough and pretty scary, and watching my wife kind of fight through that and looking for peace. And there was a time where she was just in the kitchen, and she just got some not so fun news and was kind of feeling not so great about the pregnancy, and then she just burst into tears. And before I could leave the couch, my 8-year-old son beat me to it. He was closer. He ran up to his mom. He put his hand on her, and he started praying for her. He said, it's going to be okay. And he started declaring truth. And I'm about to cry again, but I was crying then. And, I talked to him afterwards and said, son, I've watched you score 30 points in a basketball game, score hundreds of touchdowns,
Come on, man.
and do some really cool things. But I've never been more proud of you, because what we're affirming is that's what men do.
Yep.
That's the way it's the way you're loving your mama. It's the way you're going to be loving your wife.
We know how to go find strength.
Oh yeah.
And the greatest strength we can find is in the greatest Father we have.
Come on.
Yeah, that's so good, Christian. Christian's last comment he made a few minutes ago got me thinking about this next question. I would like to hear the answers at this table. But it says this. It says, I would love to see more groups for men like there are for women in the church. I haven't been able to find a men's group around me. Where do I find one? Or how would you start something like this for men?
Do it. Just do something.
I was going to say, find it right on the other side of starting it.
I had the same thought, guys. Look at that. Tibetan used to say, it was people. Let's insert the word men. Men who do something. The difference between men who do something and men who don't do something is men who do something. Do something.
Dude, just do it, man.
It's powerful.
I think that, again, taking responsibility is creating a room on the other side of
It's awesome.
where you are. So if you want to level up, take more responsibility.
Yeah.
And the thing that keeps a boy is the fear of being more responsible.
Yep.
You stay back, you avoid responsibility. The thing that demotes a man towards being a little boy is avoiding the next room of responsibility in your life.
Which is part of the culture of, we talk about how can I life hack this, or how do I get to a place where I have, passive income coming in and I'm on the beach and I'm not doing any work. And there's this thing about like, hey, I get it, it's attractive or whatever. Like, hey, I hope you do well financially too. But the goal, like as you're saying, is not being void of responsibility and not working. Your best life is on the backside of responsibility, like you're saying. So, starting a men's group, I got asked a few years ago to start a men's volunteer program at my boys' school, because there was a lack of guys present, and I was the only guy showing up for things. They're like, hey, why don't you do something? I did not want to do it. I did not need another thing to do.
Sure.
But I am a 2-3. The 3 wing was pretty strong, so I was like, I bet you I could do this.
I can squeeze this in.
Yeah. So we do this thing, and
I'll do it 2 a.m. in my spare time.
and it was a ton of work, and it was a fight. I mean, right away, I had a guy come, and the very first day, I'm getting people signed up or getting excited, and the very first day, a guy comes and goes, why can't moms be a part of the group? My boys go to a public school, so this conversation's on the table. Like, I can't run the program. I'd like to run the program. And I said, because there's lots of other things for moms to get involved in. And we have a pretty underrepresented group here of fathers volunteering. So it's about getting guys to volunteer. So that's why women haven't been telling women about it. I mean, and so that turned into a whole fight with the principal and the district. So as I'm trying to build this thing, I got this other guy trying to tear it down, which was no fun. Flash forward, this group is still going. It's in its second year. There was a guys who rose up around me, and there's one in particular. He's just a stud. I mean, I don't know where he gets all this time to volunteer. I mean, the dude's at everything. He's doing a great job with his family, and we were talking through, and I said, hey, Matt, I think you should lead it going forward because people are responding really well to you. And we're sitting down at the table. I was, having all these meetings at breweries. That's how I get dads to show up, and we're sharing a beer and just talking about. And all these dads have so many great ideas for what they want to do. And here comes that dad that was giving me a hard time. This is my last kind of meeting as the leader. And he sat down and said, hey, I want to show up because I want to be a guy just making a ruckus and not showing up. And he looks over and points at me. He's like, I don't like that you're a Christian. I don't like that you're affiliated with Danny Silk and Bethel Church. And, he starts ripping me one. And I just smiling at him, And he's like, I think this should be a all-inclusive thing. And I didn't say one word. Every single guy around there, who majority of them are not Christians, really tactfully and really great, basically get to this guy and say, hey, this is better when it's guys. This is where we're showing up. It's why I'm here, and we're bringing a bunch of strength to this school. Let's not mess this up. Would it be okay with you if we just kept it guys? His response was, yeah, it's totally okay. In fact, I haven't had a group of guys to hang out with forever. This has been so life-giving to me. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, you're just a professional complainer.
So like, all right. But, it's still happening. It's growing. And
so good.
It's because we did something. And there's a bunch of guys, be that first guy, and then Matt was the first follower, and then it turned into this explosion. And he's the leader now, and I'm following him, and he's kicking butt.
Yeah.
Cool.
I feel famous all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's wow. That's pretty cool. Somebody in Elk Grove knows who I am.
Well, it's because I used my Loving on Purpose email to email the whole school.
Okay.
On purpose.
Leaked.
Loving on purpose.
Yeah,
on
leaked.
purpose.
It's like, if you end up on our website, like, I don't know.
This could help. Make you a better father.
Yeah. So the place that's waiting for you, that you're waiting to go to is probably the place that you created.
Yeah.
I had a conversation recently with a different client. He told me he's turned down a few promotions at work a couple of times. He's got all these problems at home with his marriage, with his kids. He is so scared. We're actually talking through his relationship with his own father and just where that's been ravished. And as we're progressing, I'm watching this guy go, part of the solution is this for me. It's me taking my responsibility. But he's just taken that off of his shoulders for so long. So go take responsibility.
Yeah. And let me add to that. Braveco is a very, very nourishing environment. It's an online community of guys. They do events. Jay Valentin's doing a fantastic job. It's really about addressing a man's heart and soul and getting men healed and strengthened from the inside out. It's at the same time a way to build a band of brothers.
They'll put you in a small group, and
it's just he's doing such a great job there. So that's another way to really dive in pretty aggressively on who am I, why am I, and why do you keep talking to me so directly? So you may need some labels, before you can step out. Maybe that's what's waiting for you. Is you just need a commissioning in some ways, to where you take responsibility for yourself. Deep enough that you can then go into the next room of responsibility for others.
Good. It's good. Get healed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Good stuff. Next question. Do you think fatherlessness will be seen as a problem to solve in the next generation as they mature in their leadership? Well, let's hope not. Let's hope we solve it here, I know we got some stuff going on at Loving on Purpose. I'm writing another book. We've been working for the last going on 4 years. It'll be 4 years in September. The Dragon Slayer community.
Wow.
We're going to do a whole thing around that. So I don't want to distract from what we're doing here, but it very much is a place for men to connect with other men, to have a group identity, to learn how to enter that next room, how to take responsibility for the next place in your life, to have a man say to you, do you know what it means to be a man? Would you lay your life down for a brother?
Yeah.
Do you even know how to do that? Do you know how to stay connected to a man who is being a bonehead? Or do you just move on?
Yeah.
Can you make a lifetime covenant? Can you create a brother? Your brother, if your brother is a knucklehead, he's still your brother. Mm-hmm. And that will keep coming back, and it will keep coming back. And maybe it takes 10 years before he goes into his next room and takes responsibility for himself. But the day that he does, bam, there's your brother. That's the way this works. And can you do that with other men? Will you commit your life to another man for life? I mean, that's scary stuff. I think most men are just like, nope. Why would I do that? Why would I give any of my time and energy to somebody that wasn't nourishing me?
Right.
It's like, well, please don't have any children.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You are going to
about
commit your life to your children for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's how this works. Can you make a covenant?
Yeah.
Are you a covenant man?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
When I started gathering, I said, Danny kicked this off and Dragon Slayers is coming. But just the point that got me, when I started looking for men to kind of build my own group, the response 100% of the time was something like, I've been waiting for something like this. I've been looking for this kind of thing.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. So it's just the heartbeat's out there. Men, we are so excited about this conversation that's coming out of this audience in this area.
Yeah.
I think we know what's in your heart. We are championing what's in your heart. Let's do it.
Yeah. Super good stuff. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you for a great conversation. And listeners, thanks for taking it in. And we'll be marching down the track here with more of the same.
Thanks for listening. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Don't forget to submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The KYLO Show is produced by Ali Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck and Anna Hill, sound engineer and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Christian Zamora. Don't forget, whole healthy families, gonna save the world.